of my videos. Now, a little bit of a request from Facebook and over Instagram, and a lot of questions that I'm getting from customers coming through the flight simulator is actually how do we flight plan and what are we actually touching computer-wise to program the aircraft from A to B. So this little bit of a video here is going to give you a little bit of a basic insight on how to flight plan and what pieces of software you can actually use to help you out to flight plan as well. So you're going to have to bear with yourself. It's going to be a bit of a lengthy video, but if you just sit back, relax and take some good notes, this should help you out when it comes to flight planning in the 737-800. Thanks very much. So to begin, I think it's important that we go through some of the key areas that you're going to have to be using when flight planning in the 737-800. To start off with, I'm going to introduce the flight management computer. Alongside that, I'll be using my iPad, which really comes as an important tool when it comes to flight planning. And what I can get from here is all the relevant charts that I'll need to go from A to B. And also what I'll be able to do is pop that into the flight management computer. And the computers are these two located down here. We have one on the captain's side and one on the first officer side. So to begin, what we'll be doing is we'll be programming the FMC alongside using the iPad down here, and what you'll be able to do is you'll be able to follow this tutorial through on your own personal flight simulator, and that should be able to help you out. So to start off with, on the flight management computer you're presented with a menu page with 3 options: FMC, ACARS and DFDA. So to start off with, we are presented on the flight management computer with this screen. It's presented as FMC, ACARS and DFDAU. Now the one that you'll be interested in is in the top left corner, which will be the flight management computer, FMC. We'll give that a click and this takes us to our first page, which is the IDEM page. Now there's a variety of information and it's depending on how in depth you're wanting to go. The things you want to be checking out for on this page to start off with is the correct model, which is the 737-800. The nav data is actually out of date currently at the moment, but if you are keeping your nav cycles up to date, it's best to check the date, which is just located here. Engine rating, which is in the top right corner. And for that page there, that's all you really need to check. Next page, position in it. Now the flight today that will be flight planning will be from Dublin to Liverpool. So to start off with, you'll have a last position, latitude and longitude in the top right corner. However, we're wanting to type in the reference airport for today, so what we do is we're going to go down to the FMC and go EIDW, which is the ICAO code that's now in the scratch pad. That now is going to be taken up to Ref Airport, EIDW, and you can cross-check the latitude and longitude also as well. To the routes. Now the FMC is really clever. It knows you've just typed EIDW, so EIDW now needs to be transferred from the scratch pad all the way up to origin. Now the destination ICAO code, as you can see, anything that's got white boxes needs to be filled in. It's compulsory. Anything with dashed lines, such as under the co-route, is advisory. It's not compulsory to put in. So we're going to pop in EGGP, and that again is in the scratch pad and now needs to be transferred to destination. Now the runway does have dashed lines, but I'd recommend putting this in, especially for your departure runway. Okay, so with that and the runway, we're going to be departing runway 28 today. And again in the scratch pad, up to the runway. Now we've got to the point that we've completed this page, and what you should find, providing you've aligned the IRSs, which are located on the aft overhead, you should have on the navigation display the runway and the aircraft. So that's a good starting point. And a lot of the ways I teach the navigation and the planning side of things is to think of it like a story and think of each bit in phases. So the next page that we're going to be exploring is this down here, next page. But as you can see, the route section is actually blank. So what we're going to have to do here is we're going to have to put in a departure from Dublin, and we call this a standard instrument departure. To get to that section, what we can do is we can go to the Departures Arrivals button, or DEP-R, on the flight management computer. Here we're presented with the Departures Arrivals index, and you've got to be very careful here that you don't go pressing the wrong button. So what we're looking for here is to be pressing the departure from EIDW. Now, as you can see, there's quite a bit of information present and a lot of standard instrument departures. So how are we supposed to find this information? Well, there's a good tool that you can use called SimBrief, which is completely free, and this basically simplifies the planning. However, I tend to recommend, if you are using these automated pieces of software, you still cross-check it with the charts, such as Jeppesen charts or Navigraph charts. So on the iPad currently, this is SimBrief, and this is where you can get this information about your standard instrument departures, en route information, and standard terminal arrival route information. Additionally as well, you can get weather off here, which is quite helpful. However, what I tend to find is in flight planning, if we use this piece of software and generate a briefing pack, then you can get all this weather information in. So when you've created an account with these guys, what you want to do is you're going to go to Dispatch, and from Dispatch we're going to go to the dispatch system. Okay, we're now on the main page, and scrolling down on the iPad we're going to go to Create a New Flight. We're now presented with the integrated dispatch system page, dispatch options, and to begin we're going to go to the flight info section. Departure will be Echo India Delta Whiskey. Our arrival, as discussed, is Echo Golf Golf Papa. Now, this is a tutorial today, however we'd have to have a alternate. Now that's entirely up to you, but with the alternate this can be selected in here, but I'm just going to leave it as it is just for tutorial purposes, as it's randomly generated an automatic alternate. I can put the departure time in Zulu, but I'm not going to panic about that just for tutorial purposes. Your airframe, as we know, is the 737-800. And what this will now do is it will pop out some information for us. So we have the time en route, which is approximately 1 hour. We'll be departing runway 28, and the arrival runway is runway 27 from current forecasts. You can also manually put in your taxi out estimated time and taxi in estimated time, and additionally any extra fuel that you think you require for the day. Altitude, I wouldn't recommend putting that to auto. You want to check with the en route charts and checking the airway system, checking that there's no even or odd flight level systems. Again, this is best being checked on a en route section, but you can type your altitude just in here. Passengers again are automatic if you require that, or you can manually put those in with a given cargo weight and again a zero fuel weight. Recommending that this zero fuel weight, again, if you can try and go away from auto and manually put that in, that's best. That will have to be put in the FMC. And you can put your name just in there as well. From this point now, the dispatch system will give us our required route. Now, it'll chuck out the default route, but additionally what we can do if you want is go to the suggested routes. Now this is entirely up to you. The one that I'll be choosing today is this one. We can analyse this route, and this will make sure that the route is valid for the AIRAC 1603, or the current nav cycle. Route distance 137 nautical miles. This is the current route distance today. Now you can push the boat out all the way if you so wish. You have all your route on the map. You can check the weather, which is very important, and the upper winds as well, and you can factor this into the flight management computer. Alright, however, because of the extent of this video, we'd be here all day, so I'm just going to be showing you the basics to get you from A to B today. Alright, so that's SimBrief, and I'll leave the link below in the video. Cheers. Okay, so take a snapshot of that. That is our routing for today. However, I'm going to be getting the charts out. I'm not just presuming by looking at a line of letters that that's correct. Yes, it's done a analyze route for us, but we want to make sure that it's correct on the chart. So what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be starting for the standard instrument departure Liffey 5 Alpha to Liffey. We'll be then going on to the Lima 975 airway to Linus and starting the start at Tipo 2 Alpha. Let's pick these up on the chart. Okay, this is the standard instrument departure chart. Island Dublin, RNAV SIDS runway 28. Also the current date is 09 October 2014. Now, how do I assimilate all this information? There's quite a bit presented on this screen. Well, we've used SimBrief, the automated software, to help us out here, and we're going to be looking for that departure as discussed, which was the Liffey 5 Alpha departure. Now, on Navigraph, they're presented with these little green indicators that pick out the SIDS. Liffey 5 Alpha is this one here, so this is what we need to use. So, to keep everything nice and organised, let's highlight this. Okay. Here's the information from Dublin 279, and we have the Oscar Echo NDB and its right turn on track to the Dublin VOR 096 degree radial, and then to Liffey, which is 28.9 DME from Dublin. This here is when the SID is complete. Let's now put this into the flight management computer. Okay, so Liffey 5 Alpha, we've established this on the chart. Let's now find it in the FMC. Next page. Quite a few standard instrument departures. Again, remembering, find the right one. By clicking next page and previous page, I've now identified the Liffey 5 Alpha. Press runway 28. And now what we can see from the navigation display is the start of our flight plan. Now I'm going to recommend flicking on the ETHIS to plan. This makes things a lot more easier. Navigation display. Oscar Echo. Dublin. Liffey. This now is the completion of the standard instrument departure. To verify that information of the standard instrument departure, you want to press legs. This gives us the information that is present in the route legs page. Now we have to continue the story, so by continuing that story we're now entering the en route phase, or the airways portion. Here on the iPad we have the en route chart. Now we said that the standard instrument departure was Liffey. We finished at Liffey. And the airway that we're going to be using after Liffey is the Lima 975. Now, this information is quite exhaustive, and what we can see here on the intended routes is Liffey, Idexa, Guinness, Natco, Linus, Rolex. There's quite a few waypoints. So we need to contain these waypoints into the flight management computer, and there is a nice easy way. Instead of just panicking, putting every single waypoint en route, we can use those contained waypoints on the airway system and type Lima 975 into the FMC. So let's do this. Back to the FMC, and what we're going to want to do is, from where we left off, on your current route page, you're wanting to type that information in, and we agreed Lima 975. Let's type that in. Lima 975. Here we go. This is now entered into the VIA section. Don't get caught out and put it into 2. Now, what are we going to in the Lima 975 system? Well, we're going to have to refer back to that sim brief to get this information, if you can't remember. Can you see it? Linus. This is now what we need to put into the 2 section. Down here, Linus. Linus scratchpad into the FMC 2. We have more information now presented on the navigation display. Let's just have a little bit of a jump through. How do we do this? Well, we can see here that we need to be stepping through. So by clicking legs, you get the option to step. Let's step. By completing the standard instrument departure at Liffey, BLC 37, zoom in for you a bit, Ginnis, Natco, Linus. This now has completed the en route section, and we now need to program the standard terminal arrival route. Let's get that information. So, referring back to our fancy tool from SimBrief, we can now pick up that it's the Typo 2 Alpha. Now again, like I said, we need to refer this against the chart, so let's get this done. On the iPad, I'm going to go now to my charts. I'm going to type in EGGP, Echo Golf Golf Papa for Liverpool. The orange section on Navigraph is for the stars, and we've got to be careful here, because if you look on the iPad, it's stars from the west and northeast. Now, we're not arriving from the south or southeast, so be very careful. Again, quite a bit of information, but you've got to think of it like a story here and think logically. Where am I arriving from? Here is my hand. Well, I know that I'm coming in from Dublin, and that there is over from the west, so I'm coming over from here. So what am I meant to choose? Well, let's look at the information and zoom in. This is the great thing about these charts. They're not messy like paper charts, you can just zoom in. Now we have 3 options. We have the Typod 1 Bravo, Typod 1 Kilo, Typod 2 Alpha. Now we know it's the Typod 2 Alpha that is needed, and let's see if this information is correct. Linus, well, we know that we're finishing at Linus, so this is a good start. Rolex, Malud, Typod. Now from that point there, we can see that this is going to be the correct standard terminal arrival route. So let's go and program this in. Again, I always recommend for flight planning purposes you highlight the intended route, as this really makes it easy to pick it up with your eyes and not having to strain your eyes when you're flying. We're back at the FMC to get this star in, so we know Linus, and we've completed the en route phase at Linus. Let's get that star in. Like we did with the SID, departures, arrivals. Arrivals into EGGP. Remember, be careful, you're not arriving into Dublin. Here are the stars. Well, we know that it's the Typo 2 Alpha. By clicking the next page, here it is. Give it a click. And now, what we want to look for again is this page has now been updated. So like we said before, we can go into the legs and we can step this. Here's the step button. Each time you press the step, you can go through the route. Typod is the termination of the star. So with the standard terminal arrival route in and cross-checked with our approach plate, we can also look at selecting the runway. Now the runway that we're going to be using for the arrival into Liverpool will be runway 09. Let's get this programmed in. Departures, arrivals. Again, be careful. Arrival into EGGP. ILS 09. Now, we've just selected ILS 09. So from this point on, what we can check is that the information is correct in the FMC. So again, I'm stepping it, I'm going through. Again, what we can see though is that the information is here, but there's a gap, there's a discontinuity, so we need to know how to connect this up. So with the gap, the information that were presented is waypoint typod and the ILV waypoint. Let's find this in the FMC. Again, you want to get on the legs page. And what we can see here, as we flick through, the discontinuity is present. ILV is 76 and typod. Let's join this up. By joining this up now, what we can look for is here. We have a joined up route to intercept the ILS. Now, in reality, usually radar vectors would be present at this point and then vector you in, but we have to always have a plan in force just in case that doesn't happen. So with that in mind, we've now completed the full route and we want to activate this route. So, what we're going to do now, we're going to go back to the initref index, pause, and by clicking that we have the option to activate. Activate, execute. Our route now has turned solid magenta. This is confirmation the route is now active. Let's now move on to performance. Okay, so how do we get to the performance page? Well, after completion of your route and activating, it will now give you this option, performance init. Give it a click. Here we have quite a few white boxes. There's quite a bit of information that needs to be in here. Now, for the simplicity of this tutorial, again, I won't be putting specific weights in. I'm just going to press the boxes and this will present the weights. However, a lot of this information can be got via the dispatch system that I showed you at SimBrief, so you can accurately put the numbers in. But from SimBrief, what you're going to want to do is you'll have a gross weight that will appear with a 0 fuel weight, and you're going to want to put the reserves from the brief. But for simplicity, I'm just going to put 1 in today, and a cost index of 5. The lower the cost index, the more fuel you'll use. The higher the cost index, the quicker that you'll go. Cruise altitude, we're going to be choosing flight level 240, and that's been typed in just here. You can pull that into the cruise out. And you can also put here cruise winds, ISO deviations, top of climb, OAT, and your transition altitude as well. Again, very important for the transition altitude to be correct. Again, what you'd do here is you'd look at those charts off Navigraph, find that, you'd input the value and press transition altitude, and always execute, like an OK button on a computer. Now, if any of the performance couldn't match the criteria of the route, it would flag up in the bottom box or the scratch pad here saying unable cruise altitude, or if there is a discrepancy in the weight or something isn't correct, again it will be flagged up in the bottom of here. N1. You have the option to derate if you so wish. This is nice and easy. You can click the required derate, 25k derate, 22k derate, or a takeoff bump of 27k bump. Now, usually with the derates, they're labelled as TO1, TO2, and TOB. If you just find it comfortable just to leave it on 27k, that's fine, but you do have the options to derate, and also you have the options to derate the climbs as well. We now go on to the takeoff section. And now this is quite important because with the takeoff section, it's going to take all those numbers into account, and now it's going to chuck out our associated V-speeds. Now it's going to be a flaps 5 departure for the 737. Again, that would be input here and taken up to the flaps 5 box. Here are our associated V-speeds. Phone going off, always busy now. V1 is 125, give it a click. VR 127, give it a click. V2 139, and these numbers would need to be cross-checked via your operational flight plan. CG, give it a click, and at this point, as we can see now, pre-flight complete. Again, it may be good to have a run through the FMC just to make sure everything is correct, checking your legs, and additionally as well within those legs checking for discontinuities or any gaps in the route. Also having a little bit of a check of the top of climb and top of descent, very important, but you're looking for a flowing route. You don't want any waypoints that are out of the ordinary. And this here, again, this is a basic start to getting a flight plan into the FMC and making sure that everything is correct and then executing the flight. With that in mind, we now have a completed route, and that route here, as we can see, is all presented just here. So that's the completion of the video. It's give you a little bit of an insight into the navigation aspect of the 737. Now, the 737, as we know, is a very, very complex aircraft. It takes time, a lot of learning, keep persevering. I had to. With the navigation side of things as well, and the FMC is capable of doing a lot more than just punching numbers and letters in. It's important as well that to get your hand in practically, but also as well there are quite a few literature documents out there that you can read that will really, really enhance your learning and make it a lot more easier to understand how the flight management computer works. As we know these days with aircraft are heavily automated, so what we have to do is we have to learn how to manage this automation, but also additionally learn how to use that automation under time pressure and also in a constant changing environment. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you could recommend some more videos to come, I'm always happy to jump in the sim and take you through a few ropes of the 737. Again, I hope this helps you, especially if you're a flight simmer out there, or especially you're considering a career in aviation, to give you a bit of an insight to how the automation works on a flight deck environment. Thanks very much for tuning in. This is Flight Deck Simulator and the Aviationist, and hope to catch you soon. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.